Breach is one of the agents in Valorant that I've always been confused about. When you look at his kit, my god does he look so busted on the surface. His Aftershock one-shots people, he's got 3 really disgusting flashes that allow him to get onto any site, and has a pair of huge CC abilities that give him so much leverage to his teammates in different situations. But in spite of that, Breach sees relatively little play in competitive, and ever since the game's launch has had one of the lowest win rates in the game. I want to highlight why Breach could be the best agent to really never succeed, and how there's core weaknesses in his kit right now that probably need to be changed. Quick reminder that only 4% of my audience is currently subbed, so if you could hit the button, that'd help me a ton. On to the video. So why is Breach able to both feel like one of the most broken agents in the game, but be in such a poor state in the metagame? The answer is weird but simple. He's not really that broken actually. His kit definitely gives this impression that his abilities have a ton of oomph to them since they're so loud and command attention. However, when it comes down to their actual use case, they don't quite live up to the hype that they bring. I'll give credit where it's due in that both Aftershock and Flashpoint are really solid abilities, and are probably some of the best ones within Breach's kit. Aftershock does its job as an angle clearing and post plant ability, and I think it's a perfect accessory ability, whereas Flashpoint serves as a great core to the kit, and I find it to be really satisfying to use as well. With 3 flashes in the tank, Breach can serve as the sole flasher on many teams or be complemented by a second flasher on the roster to create an absolutely toxic amount of flashes on any team environment. The issues I have with Breach arise when you get to the other 2 abilities in his kit. I think the main issue I have with Breach is actually related to Fault Line. Despite its incredibly long range, it doesn't really feel that good to use. Even though it does have a huge length, the ability itself doesn't bring enough to the table that really makes people fear it. And even though it has a relatively short CD at 35 seconds, it's an ability that makes you feel like you're doing a lot, even though the reality is that you're not. For one, the daze mechanic feels kind of redundant on an ability that has such a long range. If you, for example, use Fault Line in a corner from far away and even manage to connect it onto someone, chances are that person will be happy just eating the ability, allowing themselves to be CC'd for the duration, and not even feel threatened really. If you were closer and can follow up on it, then it does have more potency, but even then it's a bit of a stretch. To build onto that, Fault Line's also just a fairly dodgeable ability. You could argue that forcing someone to sidestep it could make them run away from a corner, but again, for an ability that looks like it does so much, it gives the enemy a lot of options to play around. There's a few ways Riot could go around balancing Fault Lane to allow it to have an actual impact. The first thing that comes to mind for me is exchanging its longer range for just a wider AoE. It doesn't really need to be as wide as Rolling Thunder per se, but it definitely needs a bit more threat to it. Another way to go about this is to keep the area of effect the way it is, but introduce either a different type of CC or add another debuff on top of the daze effect that it has. I think something like a vulnerable or even just increasing the daze time when you get hit by it better incentivizes players to actually deal with Fault Line. I think just changing its AoE is easier to execute on, but regardless, this ability needs a change. Now onto Rolling Thunder. While definitely not as bad as Fault Line in this case, I think the ability could use some touch-ups and improvements to either its AoE or adding some quality of life changes, whether it be increasing the speed of the charge or potentially reducing its costs. Most of the time, Rolling Thunder succeeds as an offensive ability to either take or retake a site. While it's generally successful in this respect, I think the ability struggles in a couple of ways. Unless the site you're on is actually tiny, I really don't think the ability truly impacts an entire site most of the time, usually leaving it up to a decent level of counterplay against it. There's usually at least 1 or 2 spots Rolling Thunder isn't able to hit, and it's oftentimes in those spots where players will be able to reposition themselves towards and just counter the attempt. This, combined with its relatively slow travel speed, gives players more than enough counterplay to answer it. I'd be fine with this if Rolling Thunder wasn't so expensive to use, however. The way it sounds just makes it feel like it should cost 7 credits, but in practice, it's really not that hot of an ability. Either make this ability slightly cheaper or add something to make it more reliable, just anything to improve its use case. It's because of these reasons that I find that Breach struggles to truly fill his role as a strong initiator, because his main initiating tools are a little bit unreliable and don't bring enough to the table. Fortunately enough though, I don't think his issues are too deep, and I think just a couple of solid buffs to the overall feel of his kit will be enough to make him a solid part of the metagame. As always though, hope this video helps you out, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay fresh.